GOP bloodbath yesterday across the board. Elections, we lost big. We're also going to be talking about human organ harvesting done by the cartels and others. And last but not least, Our Lady she was trending 2 days ago. Not sure if it was a good reason, but the Vatican made a new pronouncement. We're going to cover that. This is John Yep, my co-host Michael Hitchborn, Catholic champion. See you in a bit. Well, bloodbath it was, Michael, right? You shared your offline frustration just before the show. I'm like, let's save that. Let's put that on camera because what you're feeling, a lot of us are feeling, okay? So let's get into what happened here. It's an off-year election, okay? Mm-hmm. Off years are actually important. By off year, we mean they're not midterm, and it's not presidential, right? So a lot actually does happen in those off-year elections for a couple of reasons, because sometimes the dirtiest stuff, specifically with like state propositions, oftentimes are passed during that time. Why? Mm-hmm. It's obvious. People are burnt out after presidential. They want to forget about politics, and they sneak some of their stuff in, okay? We saw that here in my home state, Arizona, which we're going to cover in a bit, Prop 409. So they're important. They're also bellwethers, obviously, for the midterms of what's coming. And it's a first temperature check for, how the populace is feeling after, Trump's been in office now for 10 months, okay? Mm-hmm. 1 year ago today, we had that historic election, historic landslide. President Trump took the popular vote, won all 7 swing states, and Catholics for Catholics and others were part of securing the largest Catholic landslide in the United States history when we won by 18%, okay? So, but we lost big and bad, okay? It's very important. Let's go into that because this is a temperature gauge of where America is, what's going on. It's serious in a lot of ways, okay? Obviously, the one that took front and center, which was really no surprise, was you have Mom Donnie, who talk about a symbolic takeover, okay? He is a Marxist, Muslim combination, and he took victory in New York City. That is the apple, the Big Apple. It is the apple of the eye of the country, if not the world. When people think of the United States of America, they think of New York City, okay? It was 25 years ago, roughly 2001, 24 years ago, that we had an attack, 9/11, upon our soil by those jihadists. And now 24 years later, their representative has taken control. Let's play that victory speech to give you a feel for what this guy's all about.
After all, the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
That's Mom Donnie. We're going to go into him in a bit of what that actually means for New York. Going through other results, okay, of what happened. You have the Democrats won in New Jersey, okay, against Jack Ciattarelli. He was a Republican that, in theory had a chance. Although, to be totally honest, right from the start, the MAGA base, the grassroots American were very, very disappointed when President Trump gave his endorsement to Jack over the other governors or the other candidates slipping my mind, but he was much, much better and had a lot of potential just as a good man, good God-fearing man. So we ran with Jack. Jack lost. Trump did endorse him, though they kind of tried to keep Trump at a distance, honestly, during the campaign, which I think was a mistake, a total mistake, considering that when Trump did his rallies there in New Jersey, if you remember, he gathered 100,000 people there on the Jersey Shore, unheard of for a Republican to do that. Yet Jack kind of keeps him at a distance a little bit. So they lost. No surprise there. You have going over quickly to, you have Minneapolis, right? And Omar Fatah, who's been described as Mamdani of Minneapolis, took the mayoral race there in Minnesota. Okay. So you have all across the board little losses like that. And, all things said, it was a big GOP bloodbath. Initial comments or thoughts on this whole situation, Michael?
I want to read to you a quote from Nikita Khrushchev. He said,
it's bad when you're going to Khrushchev right here. Go.
He said, we can't expect the American people to jump from capitalism to communism, but we can assist their elected leaders in giving them small doses of socialism until they awaken one day to find they have communism. This is exactly what is happening right now. Let me make this absolutely clear. This was not a referendum on Trump. This was not a referendum on the Republican Party. And more importantly, this was not a victory for the Democrats. What we saw in these elections was the deep state striking back. Why is it important that we have a socialist Muslim in charge of New York City now? Because he's in charge of the New York ports, which have all kinds of access and entry into the United States. And so what is he going to be shipping in? Who is he going to be shipping in? How are things going to be coming into the United States and into this country if he is stymieing any kind of port authority or any investigations into how things are transported into this country? He is a socialist and he is a Muslim. Where are his loyalties going to lie? Not with the American people. His loyalties are going to lie with jihad, and his loyalties are going to lie with communizing this country, revolution. That election in New York was not just a blow for New Yorkers. It was not just a blow for New Englanders. It was a blow for this entire country. And now I think it's incumbent upon Donald Trump to make sure that we have federal workers, agents, sitting in New York and keeping an eye on everything that happens, because what is going on in New York is now under strict control of the mayor. And that is extremely dangerous for the rest of us. And when you have a socialist in charge of Minneapolis, that exacerbates the problem. Oh, and guess what? Abigail Spanberger is an a CIA agent. She's an asset to the deep state. So
and
all of this.
What's her role? Speak about that. Who she is a little bit.
So Abigail Spanberger, she was actually the she ran in my district here in Virginia. And she beat the incumbent because he basically phoned in his campaign, and she hit the streets and did a lot of street walking to get, knock on doors and that kind of thing. On top of that, at the time, we had a Democrat governor who had ensured that the district lines were redrawn and made it more easier for Spanberger to take that particular district. So she played the role of kind of a moderate Democrat. She's not a moderate Democrat. She's extreme to the left. Her whole ideology, her whole process of thinking is deep state, global. Okay, so she is an important key figure. Now, Donald Trump, right there on the back door of Washington, D.C., he's got to keep his eye on her, and he's got to figure out how are we going to keep her at bay at the same time that we're monitoring what's going on in New York. So it's an extremely tenuous and dangerous situation that we're facing right now.
It is, and I had not thought about that point with the ports, but that's real. That's serious, right? A lot of control goes on there in New York City. So to have him in control it presents a different aspect of the problem aside from his policies, right? Ilhan Omar, okay, our Somalian Democrat candidate from Minnesota, her reaction to Mamdani winning was this: Alhamdulillah. Okay, I don't even want to say that. Praise be to Allah. Okay. Says it all, I think. It, a complete false God, right? Which is that's what it is. We don't share the same God as them. Okay. And so it's a victory. It's a serious blow, victory from Islam, right? In that sense, just some of his policies, and just so you can kind of see the linkage between Marxism and Islam in that sense, how they've kind of come together, what he's going to be doing. He's obviously going to be opposing all of Trump's policies with immigration, and people wonder, like, why was he elected? Okay, was it just because, I don't know, Democrats weren't enthused about Cuomo, or what happened? I mean, for me, I see this as a gradual immigration out of control. You have like what? It's I think it's like 5 out of 10 New Yorkers, something like that, don't even, like, their native language is not even English. Okay,
right.
So they've immigrated there. They have not assimilated. This is not the immigration of the 1920s, 1880s, 1890s, right? Where they came, the Italians, the Irish, the Polish, the other communities, but then they eventually integrated. This is not that. It's sectarian, right? That's what Islam does. It does not integrate. Okay, typically speaking. Doubt me? Go to France. Go to Paris. There are parts of the city where the police don't even go. It's like no-go zones. Okay, go to Dearborn, Michigan, right? So they come, they set up shop, and they take over, right? They came, they see, and they conquer, to quote Caesar. So he's going to be freezing rent prices, which is going to be disastrous for just the market there. He's going to basically have government food stores where they're regulating the price. Sounds amazing, right? Universal free child health care. Increase 2% tax on multimillionaire bourgeoisie, right? Increase the New York City corporate tax rate even more.
Hold right there.
Yeah,
he wants to tax the millionaires, right? Do you realize that in order to live in New York City, you have to be a millionaire just to be able to pay rent to some of the smallest houses, to some of the smallest apartments? It's impossible to actually make it in the city of New York without making a lot of money, because you're paying a whole bunch of that back into rent, into mortgage, into taxes. And now he wants to tax that even more. What he's doing is he's making it impossible for people to actually live in the city unless you're, subsidized by the government.
True. I mean, like, go visit New York. I mean, try getting a hotel in like downtown New York City. Like, oh my goodness, like $1,000 a night, right? It's like, so it's out of control. And he's a godless atheist, right? Who's not running it. Now, different perspectives, okay? Fingers are being pointed across the board. Why we lost? Why did Mamdani win? Okay, you got Mark Levin, who I completely disagree with here, okay? Mark Levin says, although New Jersey and Virginia are blue states and New York now is more pink than blue, here's Mark Levin, okay? This is his analysis of why we lost the election. I want you to comment on this, Michael. If we do not defeat the bigots, racist, anti-Semites, anti-Christian elements trying to devour the GOP, i.e. people like Tucker Carlson, we will lose in 2026 and 28 in marginal purple states. President Trump showed the way, Reagan did before. Even our people will not turn out in big numbers for the kooks, says Mark Levin. We can Mamdani Democrats throughout the country, but we must ensure they cannot Tucker us. Direct quote from Mark Levin. Notice the shift. What is going on here? What are your first thoughts there, Michael, when you see this?
Well, when people like Mark Levin want to sit there and point the finger at racism, I think he misses
anti-Semites specifically.
Well, anti-Semitism, racism, whatever the point is. The fact of the matter is people have serious fatigue with dealing with the problems in other parts of the world. And Israel is a huge part of that. Israel has, do you realize that 100% of its defense budget comes from the federal government of the United States? 100%. They don't pay for their defense force at all. They also are a socialist country where, it's totally socialized. So why is the United States subsidizing and propping up this failed state? It's a failed state. It is a failed state. We aren't, we have no business over there. I don't really see what the point is. And a lot of other people don't see the point either. This isn't anti-Semitism. This is fatigue dealing with the problems of other countries when we've got serious problems here at home. So stop throwing this anti-Semitism stuff in our face and saying that that's the problem and that's the only way the GOP is going to have any healing and be able to come together. Bull. That's not true. What the problem is, we've lost our moral foundation. I mean, in the state of Virginia, do you realize that the lieutenant governor running on the GOP ticket was a same-sex married man who had adopted children?
I did not realize it. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, so in the state of Virginia, the GOP base, the Republican base in this state is Republican because we have a moral foundation and we have a moral fiber and we reject that LGBTQ ideologies altogether. But they're trying to force this down our throats and make us more mainstream. So what happened in Virginia was a rejection, an outright rejection of that. And they gave us the most milquetoast of all gubernatorial candidates possible. Winsome Sears was
why? Why? What is going on? Why are we putting up? This is the reality. When Trump's not on the ballot, small-time donors don't come. Low propensity voters don't show up. And we put forward these lukewarm people. It's like, we're sick of this. We're sick of just this one uniparty, right? Yep. We can't see the difference between that, what they throw up there, and then the Democrats.
Right. And the thing is, as poorly as Abigail Spanberger did in her debate, Winsome Sears was awful. She was insufferable to watch. And, you know, this is the problem. The GOP, at least the GOP in Virginia, it's a good old boys network. And unfortunately, a bunch of Freemasons are involved in it too. So they're pulling a bunch of strings. And I think sometimes they intentionally lose so that they can rally the base, get more money. And it becomes this big money laundering scheme as opposed to an actual strategy to put real people, good people, into important seats in the state of Virginia. And it's not about that anymore for them. It's just, you know, whatever they can get when they can get it. And then if they don't really feel like doing anything, they'll punish us by running milquetoast candidates and then tell us, well, this is the problem. You guys, you don't support us. You need to support us more. It's just more of the same, and lather, rinse, repeat, you know?
Notice too, okay, so there's finger pointing, okay? Some of it's planned finger pointing. Like they knew this would be the case and they're ready to go at it. I just read Mark Levin's thing, which he's gone off the rails in so many levels. And people are like, well, who's this guy? Right? So he's attacking those who critique essentially dispensationalism. That's really what it is. It's not even about anti-Semitic hatred, right? That's just that's a cover. You know, yes, of course there's anti-Semites here. That's horrible. We don't want that. But it's not as big as they say it is, okay? And they're trying to throw all of us who do what you just did, Michael, point out the fact that a nation which needs a 100% of its defense budget from another nation, it's not really a nation. It's a protectorate. Right. Matt Walsh called that out. Beautifully said, right? That's what Israel is, okay? So, you know, Mark Levin, people like Laura Loomer, who is... I don't know who she is, man, because here's what I do know, okay? And people are saying this, not just me. When I open my X feed, you know, I don't follow Laura, okay? I don't. But when I open my X feed, 5 times out of 10, the first person I see is Laura Loomer. And it's not just me.
Algorithm.
It's not just me saying this, right? So she was saying the same thing this morning, that it's it's basically the Jew haters who are behind this, the reason that we lost, and who are fracturing the GOP. And I think also that she has let us shift along with others. We did a post on this over the weekend, Catholics for Catholics, attacking in a strong way, which I think is going to become more and more prominent. This and holding up this like exemplary atheistic American citizen as opposed to the Christian American. So their attacks now are swinging for anybody who is a Christian patriot, literally. Those attacks kind of like have been picking up since the last like 5 days because they realize, this is what I think, they realize with more, and they're going to do it with more and more forcefulness, that the number one opponent to destroying this country is Christendom, specifically the Catholic Church. We alone are poised to push back, sure, against dispensationalists and blind support for the 1948 state of Israel, but Islam, Marxism, atheism, you know, Protestantism too as well, which is many ways oftentimes is the useful idiots for some of these groups because they don't like have that proper formation. Okay, so the attacks are going to come to us, and I didn't say it like in a disparaging way towards Protestants. They're amazing people. They've got good hearts. They're better. They have more courage than Catholics a lot of times. I meant that to quote who said the useful idiots? Was it Lenin? Yeah,
No, Khrushchev.
Khrushchev, right? Well, we've quoted him twice today. So, anyway, so that's what people are saying, and I think I want to show this clip, Michael. Have you comment on this, because we're being pushed in our direction. Us Catholics, us Christians who are not dispensationalists. That again, that's the heresy that believes that we have essentially a biblical mandate to support the 1948 state of Israel, hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm.
Tucker Carlson gave a speech. Did you see that, Michael? Have you seen the blowback from Tucker Carlson? So
No.
he had Nick Fuentes on. Okay, I don't like Nick Fuentes. I mean, I don't agree with Nick Fuentes on so much. I do not like his vulgarity. I don't know if I would actually have him on our show either. But anyway, he had him on the show. Okay, he was slammed for that, and he was slammed. Tucker, that is. Tucker was slammed also for just calling out Christian Zionist. Okay, so I mean, serious blowback all across the board. Okay, so I was brought on the Newsmax about 3 days ago, and I didn't have a lot of warning, and it was a little uncomfortable because I kind of knew what direction they wanted me to go on, and it was hard because it was a discussion with other Catholics. So let's just play that clip and Michael, get your reactions.
Sure.
This is really troubling.
It's heartbreaking.
It really is in many ways.
Pause. So they're basically saying to tee this up. So I was brought on to that show with Rob and Rick, and they're good guys. They're good friends actually. So they they were probably given the topic too, so they didn't really have a choice. They had to talk about Tucker, and the idea was to really cut him back. I think and to come out in favor of dispensationalists. So this is the lead up to my segment. Go.
That says this is the new Israel, and there's all these sort of, biblical demands as a result of supporting Israel.
I think we have to hate one thing, and that is those who deny the existence of God. I don't know what Tucker, he talked about Christian Zionists. I know I'm a Catholic, along with Rob and Rick. We have a very clear teaching that the Catholic Church is the new Israel. That does not justify ever anti-Semitic hatred towards those people who were the first to hear the word of God. My ancestors saved Jews from Auschwitz, and Joseph Chuba was sent to Auschwitz, and he was killed for that very reason. So I care about them, but at the same time, what Tucker was saying there, I will agree with him, that dispensationalism does not have a place within Christianity. We don't recognize that we have a biblical mandate to support the 1948 state of Israel. Should we respect them? Absolutely. Are the Israelis the best position to defend our sacred holy sites? Probably. Radical Islam is horrible. Mamdani's going to win tomorrow in New York City, a travesty. So I think we have to have clear heads. Debate is good. I don't know what the point is. I think a lot of what he says is totally off the mark. I can't stand his vulgarity. But that being said, I think we need to continue on with a lot of courage to have these conversations. It's important.
I suspect you would have said something similar to, right, Michael, if you were brought on the show for that reason, right?
Yeah, there's really nothing different that I would have said. The fact of the matter is that I've always been opposed to a lot of the foreign policy of the United States anyway. I think that we're way too involved in other countries' operations. I think that we're way too involved in trying to be the world's police force. Effectively, what we are is the active arm and the financer of the United Nations. So when you look at these operations going on in Israel and the Middle East, and you look at these operations going on in other third world countries, by and large, a lot of it has to do with the operational agenda of the United Nations, and the United States is just its pawn. So I'm opposed to the United Nations, and because of that, I'm also opposed to the things that are going on in these foreign entanglements. I think we need to get out of it. I think we need to focus on what's going on at home. That includes Israel. So everything that you said is right on. There's no mandate for the United States to be involved over there. There's certainly not a Christian mandate for Christians to be involved over there, except, as you pointed out, to defend the holy sites. So I don't understand the foreign policy aficionados who think that we need to be involved and we've got to make sure that we support one side over the, who cares? It's not my fight. It's not my position. We really do need to focus on what's going on here at home.
and you're not alone, okay? You represent what I have opinion, which is also mine, represents the majority of, especially the Republican base, okay?
Yeah.
But they are trying to pin what happened yesterday as our fault because we are asking these questions, okay? Total bogus, okay? These are people that probably are affiliated with our central intelligence agencies who are being propped up to speak about these talking points and come at us, right? Here's a great comment from the base about what happened yesterday, which makes a lot of sense. Here's why we didn't show up, okay? Or what's going on. The people who voted for Donald Trump have not gotten transparency with the Epstein files. The JFK files didn't get answered. The famous New Jersey drones. Remember those things? We never got answers to those.
Actually,
okay?
we do have an answer. I don't know if you heard about it, but the New Jersey drone, it was a guy who had created his own personal drone and he was flying around in it. That came out like a week or two ago.
It's all around the country, all over.
No, in New Jersey.
Okay, well maybe that was the case. Okay, but we didn't get an end to the Ukraine war, right? Okay, instead we almost got a new war with Iran. We didn't arrest. This is the big thing for me too. There have been 0 arrests going on since Pam Bondi has taken over control of Department of Justice. Okay. All these people, remember how we were all targeted. Okay.
Yep.
All the J6ers, those people, the pro-lifers, the Catholic priests that went to jail. Okay.
Yep.
There's been no accountability yet. We're a year in from this election. Nothing has happened. We are frustrated. The base is frustrated. We're still reading from what they said. We didn't arrest deep state traitors. We haven't really shut down the FBI. And speaking of the FBI, what is going on? Kash Patel, what is going on? The fact that you shut off the counterterrorism element department, that is Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent, from investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination. You told them to keep their paws off. Why? They were on track to look at the foreign influence that was taking place at Charlie Kirk's assassination, including the Egyptian plane. There were 2 Egyptian planes, right, that were there that day. That's been documented. Why would you cut them off? Anyway, that's a separate topic. So, inflation's still up. People are, so the base is really fed up, and I think we're just very frustrated that the people that we work so hard to send to Washington absolutely do nothing, right? But I think you agree with that, right, Michael?
Oh, yeah. I mean, but you also have to remember we've had a government shutdown for over a month now, which, by the way, I find rather fascinating that last night 12 Democrats approached the Republican Party and said, we're ready to open the government now. Now that
of course they are. That was planned too. Of course they are. Why? Because they want to push the government shutdown to Thanksgiving. They're pinning this on the Republicans. Trump, Republicans are not opening up the government. Remember, people, okay? Because this goes into what we're going to close off the show with, how once again, the Catholic Church is right in the center of the immigration issue. You've got to understand what is being said, why it's being said. Even the Holy Father, which we'll cover later in the show, again, waded into these famous press conferences, which Michael loves when the Pope does press conferences. Gets you all excited, right? Immigration is at the so why is this government shutdown? What is at the core of this? Why the Democrats refused to cooperate? It boils down.
There's an unmentioned reason why we have the situation with these elections that we have. And I think that it needs a lot more attention. The reason we have the socialists and the Muslims gaining power within high offices of government at this point has less to do with politics and everything to do with Catholic leadership. We've got bishops.
Big statement. Yep.
We've got bishops who have been beating the drum for allowing Muslims to come in, allowing Muslims to do this, allowing Muslims to do that. They're giving all kinds of latitude to a religion that is completely not only inimical to Catholic teaching, but violent towards it. They have a certain sense of animus towards the Catholic Church, but our bishops have been out there beating the drum. Oh, let them in and let them do this and let them do that, and make sure that we give them all of these free goodies, which only aids and abets the socialists. So they've been propping up the socialists. By the way, I found recently, as I was doing research on the Catholic Campaign for Human Development, In
Here we go, baby.
1980,
That's coming soon. Yep.
Yep, that's coming in a couple of weeks. In 1980, a whole contingent of the Catholic Campaign for Human Development was meeting with a socialist leader who was educating them on certain issues. Some of it having to do with migration. Isn't that interesting? But the problem within this country could be resolved if we had leaders that were not only true patriots, but were actually faithful to the teachings of Christ, saying, go forward and baptize all nations. Make converts of these people, stop coddling them and holding them in their own positions. But that's not what they want to do. They don't want to make converts. They want to sit there and make money. And the only way you're going to make money is by getting these people to pay you to bring them in. So this is a serious problem.
It is. It is. I think I love how you just connected that with this. All political problems ultimately are spiritual problems. Okay.
Yep.
It starts in the church, the war for souls. Okay. Because that's what's being played out here. It's one of the downsides. One of the negative things of the Vatican II, right? Was the idea that, I mean, they didn't say it explicitly in the documents, but kind of this mentality has come from that, whether it's because of Vatican II or just people use Vatican II to create this mentality of all religions are the same, right? Which climaxed in the Abu Dhabi document of 2019 of Pope Francis that God wills plurality of all religions. He does not will the plurality of all religions. There is one true faith, okay?
Right.
And if you operate like that, you're going to have this, like you just said, Michael, where it doesn't really matter. There's goods in every religion, and it neutralizes, it neuters the command of Christ at the ascension to go out to the whole world and make disciples of all nations. Why? What's the point? Who cares? Right? We got that video from, let's look at this, because here you have the church. You have Cardinal Dolan, who oversees New York City. Okay. He's not a liberal. Okay. I hate using that terminology for bishops. You think that they just be across the board Catholic, but that's just not always the case.
I like the word apostate.
Apostate, whatever. Apostate better, okay, because it goes back to 12. Even Judas was an apostate, right? Betrayed Christ. So Cardinal Dolan is overseeing New York City that just had that symbolic defeat for America. A Muslim was elected here. How has the Catholic Church affronted Islam here in the United States? We know what's happened in Europe. We've been completely run over there, okay, and destroyed. They're burning our churches. But New York City, what is the reaction? How has Cardinal Dolan treated the Muslim invasion of New York City? Here's his video from Lent last year. Play that clip.
Hi, everybody. It's Friday, the last day of February. Cardinal Dolan here. Thanks for joining. You realize that tomorrow Ramadan starts? Ramadan is the season of penance for our Islamic brothers and sisters. Do they ever take it seriously? It's fasting and prayer. Now, I always remember, I wasn't here in New York long. I got into a cab, and it was kind of a hot day, because Ramadan's not always in March. It moves around, so this must have been a heated month. And I had a bag of some water, and I was so thirsty, I took some water, and I drank it. And I said to the driver, would you like some water? And he said, you bet I'd like some water. I am very thirsty, but it's Ramadan, and I cannot take water till the sunset. That's how seriously they take their fasting and prayer. Now, I tell you that to shame you, because Ash Wednesday's coming up, all right? Ash Wednesday is this coming Wednesday, and that's kind of our Catholic Ramadan. So let's unite with our Islamic brothers and sisters in prayer and fasting. See you at Easter.
Analyze that. Analyze it. Go, Michael.
Well, the charitable read is that he's basically saying that Catholics are lazy, and look at what these non-believers do for their pretend faith. Okay, if that's the message, I can go along with that. But that wasn't his message, because he said, let's unite our prayer and fasting with our Muslim brothers and sisters. No, there is no uniting our prayer with theirs, because their prayers are not heard by God when they are praying in the form of their worship. You know, so anybody in any setting can say, you know, I wish God would help me. I wish God would, you know, assist me so that I can, you know, love him in the way I'm supposed to. Okay. Anybody can make that kind of prayer, and God will hear that kind of prayer, especially if it's a prayer of repentance. God, I've offended you and I'm sorry. God will always hear that, even if you don't have a proper understanding of God. But in a formal setting with a formal ritualized form of belief, no, God is not hearing those prayers because it's a lie and they are praying to something other than God. So the idea that we should be uniting our prayers and fasting with the Muslims is a bad message. It's also a message of apostasy. But truly, if he wanted to make the point that you Catholics are lazy, you Catholics are weak, and you can't even do what these people do, okay, fine. He should have stopped there and he didn't.
You can't. I think you said, Danny, let's unite with our Muslim brother. I mean, you can't really unite, right? With
No.
a false religion, right? So,
That's right. Yep.
Anyway, so but that's kind of mentality that's overseeing that traditionally Catholic city, predominantly Catholic city, which is probably no longer predominantly Catholic, right? So that's what we're up against. We have got, as a church, we've got to stand stronger. Okay, I don't hear enough Catholic voices, especially among the clergy, among the bishops, speaking out about the way that we used to as a church against Islam. Think about Ferdinand and Isabella, okay?
Right.
Those Catholic monarchs, what they did to stop the Moors invasion, so which cleared the way for Columbus to eventually rediscover America, okay? In the name of Christ, as he claimed when he landed, okay? So we need more of that because I hear more from, again, people like, I watched a clip from Chip Roy today. He's a good congressman from Texas, Protestant. But he's clear. He's like, look, people who are, he said, I'm trying to sponsor a bill which says that those who are in favor of Sharia law should be banned from this country. Okay. That supports Sharia law or deported. Big statement. He gets it though. He's seen Texas overrun. Yep. Let's play one last clip about, actually, let's save it for the immigration piece. Because I want to, that'll sync well with what we're going to talk about with the church. Should we shift gears into Tulsi Gabbard? What's going on there with the organs?
Yes.
Man, there's a lot going on today. So in case you missed this, in some ways it's no surprise. Okay, you had mass migration happening under President Biden. We were silent as a church. We were taking in millions of dollars through Catholic charities on the southern border. Little accountability. We lost 300,000+ children during that whole process. Again, relative silence, crickets among as a church, speaking up for that, the human trafficking, blah, 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 blah. Now that that's over, we're looking underneath the hood because now we have people in power who can do that, like friendlies. And we are discovering just what a demonic travesty was happening through these cartel operations. Credit to Tulsi Gabbard, okay? And her assistant, and Joe Kennedy was the head of counterterrorism. Credit to them also for investigating the Charlie Kirk case till they were shut off by Kash Patel about a week ago. But here's what they discovered in these cartels, what they were doing with human beings. Tulsi and federal officials celebrated the breakup of an infant trafficking ring, among other law enforcement victories Thursday at a White House roundtable on combating human trafficking at the southern border. Mexican authorities arrested Martha Alicia Mendez Aguilar La Diabla, which means the devil, in Juarez last month for allegedly presiding over an infant smuggling and organ harvesting operation. Aguilar, a leading member of the Jalisco Nuevo Generacion cartel, would capture poor pregnant mothers and force them to get a C-section before murdering them. Sound like Planned Parenthood with the extraction of body parts for sale? The women's organs were harvested and sold. Sorry for reading this, but I have to. We gotta realize what was happening. Okay, this is what we got to be speaking up about when they punch back at us and say, you don't have a heart for the immigrants. You don't have a heart. We do, but this is what happened because of it. The women's organs were harvested and sold. The babies and trafficked in the United States were trafficked in the U.S. for between $13,000 and $14,000 each. Aguilar's arrest led to the recovery of at least one baby whom officials found injured but alive. Local reporters claim the baby's mother was found dead in the gang member's backyard. She was just 20 years old. The arrest of La Diabla, truly the devil, and subsequent eradication of the cartel's horrifying trafficking ring would not have been possible without American counterterrorism resources and intelligence. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard reported at the roundtable. Commercial, yes, we're frustrated with elections. Yes, a lot of times they think that they go nowhere. There's no point to even trying, but sometimes they do. The proof is Tulsi Gabbard who is in power now because of all of our hard work a year ago.
Mhm.
Analysts at the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center helped Mexican authorities track her location and grave. Okay, it goes on. Just comment there, Michael, on what they're finding out now.
Well, the article is very right in saying that the arrests would not have been possible without the acts of Tulsi Gabbard. But I want to point out something worse, that the crimes would never have been committed had it not been for an industry that is predicated on the harvesting of human organs. And that really is where we're having a serious problem. The idea that you can take somebody's organ and give it to a hospital without them really asking where it came from. There wouldn't be an industry for organ harvesting.
Well said.
If you didn't have a medical industry that was willing to take body parts from unknown origins and go ahead and pay for them and then put them into other people. Why? Because the hospitals get billions of dollars for organ transplants. Billions. So the other thing that really has to be understood about this, organ harvesting is not possible when it comes to taking organs from a corpse. You cannot use organs from a corpse to give to somebody to be transplanted into. Organs have to come from a living body. Life begets life, death begets death. There is no transition here. So when you have a heart transplant, when you have a lung transplant, when you have a liver transplant, you're taking living organs out of a living person, causing their death, and then putting them into the recipient. That is not moral. That's murder for the sake of saving somebody else.
Are you saying that basically all organ donation is immoral?
I'm saying that, well, I would say that 90% of it is. You can have a kidney transplant or a transplant from somebody who is alive, who is willing. Now, there are moral Catholic arguments as to whether even that's moral, because you're talking about desecrating the temple of the Holy Spirit by causing it harm. Now, you can argue, well, I'm causing it harm to do good for somebody else, and I can still survive on one kidney, et cetera, et cetera. There are arguments back and forth on that. But when it comes to vital organs like heart, liver, lungs, it is not possible to do that morally. Not possible.
That's deep. I need to look into it too, more just the science of it too. But I know this is more your area of specialty with what.
Well, it's not really science, it's metaphysics. Because what we're talking about, death, is the separation of the soul from the body. What is the soul? The soul is the animating principle, which means as long as there is animation within the body, if you've got metabolic processes, if you've got the heart continuing to pump, even though everything says, well, the brain's dead, but the heart's still pumping, that person is still alive. Their soul has to be there to maintain the processes of the body for the body. So you can't make a determination that death has happened by saying, well, we're going to invent a certain criteria based on our understanding of medicine, and then say, therefore, we can determine that this person is dead and then take their organs and use them for somebody else. That's not moral, especially if you want to just say, well, we don't know when the soul leaves the body. At which point I say, you can't shoot into a bush without knowing for certain that there's not a person in there.
I first thought about covering this topic when we saw that video. I saw you reposted it, and it brought on a lot of discussion. I think you had a lot of comments on your post. And we're going to play this video now of what happened with a young high school student who suffered a coma or whatever, and they had this process. They said goodbye to her lying in the halls. Let's just play that clip here for a second. So you see a young lady who is in a coma. Hundreds of high school students fill the hallways of an Alabama hospital to say a final goodbye to their classmate, 18-year-old Kimber Mills, as she was wheeled into surgery to become an organ donor. The beloved high school cheerleader was tragically shot at a party over the weekend. Mills, who did not know the suspect, was taken off life support shortly after. Her family shared that she passed away peacefully at 7:08, surrounded by her loved ones. Our sweet baby sister went to be with the Lord last night. She had the biggest gathering for an honor walk the doctor has ever seen. She was and so loved by many. That's so, man, ghoulish. Is that the best word?
Yep.
Just, I mean,
and parents
being wheeled down the hallway and her classmates are looking at her and knowing that the soul is still with the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's about to have her organs ripped from her. Okay.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that, Michael?
She's still alive right there. In that video feed, she's still alive. Her heart is beating. Her lungs are respiring. There's an exchange of oxygen taking place. Her metabolic processes, where the blood is carrying oxygen and nutrients to all of the different parts of the body to keep them functioning, that's all happening, which means she's not dead. She's still alive at this point. Now, she's extremely debilitated. She very clearly has severe brain damage. All of those things are true, but those things do not equal death. And that's where we have a very serious problem. They're telling us that this person is dead. She is not dead. This person is still alive. When they go into surgery, they have to give a paralytic, by the way, to organ donors to make sure they don't thrash about on the operating table as they're taking out their organs. Why would they have to do that if the person's dead? The answer is because they're still alive.
It's out of control right now. And I think I've even heard this too, or maybe read it from your comments. A lot of people, they put down their driver's license. I want to be an organ donor. And as the news is coming out about the abuses of this industry, people are trying to take their names off that list.
Yep.
And it's very hard to do.
Yep.
People. So I'm not organ donor. I just always say the common sense, like, yeah, no, sorry. I don't believe you. I don't trust you guys there. So
I mean, just from a practical standpoint, what's going to happen when you have organ donor on your driver's license and you get into a serious accident and the doctors look at you and they go, I could either save your life or I could harvest your organs and make a bunch of money.
Is that a conflict of interest? I suspect.
Yeah.
It's, again, we're not saying that all organ harvesting is bad, right? Because people obviously have survived off this, and there's a lot of miraculous stories, but it's a very fine line with the morality bit, which needs to be talked about a lot more than what we're doing. Correct?
When you say
not all organ harvesting or transplant is evil in se, okay? Because when
well, again, there's a lot of debate back and forth as to whether you can morally extract an organ from your body to give to somebody else, because you are causing harm to the body in order to do something that is good, but you can never do something which is evil in order to achieve a good. So there is a moral debate. It's not been clarified. It's not been established one way or the other by the church, because it's still a relatively new thing, but it's morally dubious. And I think that we have to be very careful even about the idea of regular transplants.
I'm reading here. Okay, the church supports organ donation as an act of charity and love, viewed as a way to uphold human dignity and save lives. It is considered a morally good and noble act both for living and deceased donors. However, the church has specific guidelines, such as ensuring the donor's consent is free and informed, avoiding harm to the living donor, and confirming brain death before essential organs are retrieved from a deceased donor. We should probably go into that more, just on what those actually are. Those guidelines are at a later date, but that's it's gray. It's gray, and it's being abused. I mean, look at obviously we have the case of China. Okay, we know what's going on there. And man, I read this testimony the other day from his name is Lu. I'm just gonna fudge his Chinese last name. It's Ziming. Okay, Lu Ziming, an internal medicine doctor applying for asylum due to his faith in the Falun Gong, a spiritual practice being persecuted in China. Okay. He had a conversation with Epoch Times. He said he was engaged in medical work over there. After 2 cups of alcohol, Alex told Lou his experience of harvesting corneas from prisoners right after they were dead. They were shot dead on purpose for the express purpose of harvesting. He said during a meal between the two of us, we had a conversation where suddenly he mentioned that he used to frequently harvest organs from prisoners. So this is Alex, was a fake name, telling Lou what he used to do in China. It's a fake name to protect his identity. I questioned him, asking, aren't you afraid? Lou said. He said at first he was very scared, but over time, he felt that it was just routine, like having a meal. Later, he told me that some days he would harvest several in one day. This is a survivor or a guy who was in China doing this, right, on executed prisoners. He said, and in China, things like that are common sight. Officially, CCP authorities announced they would stop harvesting organs from executed prisoners in 2015. Sure, yeah, whatever. But recently, CCP leader Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin discussed increasingly longevity through organ transplants. Okay, I mean it's obvious. Okay, you can you wait months here in the United States for an organ transplant, and if you go through China, you can get it within weeks. Okay, right. So it's out of control. We need to be speaking up to this as a church.
I completely agree. I think that there needs to be. I would actually really like to see Dr. Paul Byrne, who is the leading expert on brain death and organ transplants. I would like to see him and other experts in the field have a large symposium where they discuss the real serious problems with organ transplantation. I think that it's something that needs to be addressed, and there has to be a moral discussion, a real moral discussion with honest doctors and theologians to discuss this matter.
Absolutely. What a perfect framework, by the way, to go into. Just we started with kind of the election, how immigration kind of caused that, Mamdani winning, among other factors, shifted over to organ transplants. But let's close with how the church has been speaking up. We have to cover this. You may ask, why are you guys continuing to cover immigration? The church keeps speaking about it, right? So it's right in the middle of it, okay? This is not us creating stuff. The Holy Father himself came out yesterday, spoke again to reporters about what's going on with the Trump immigration stuff. But before we do that, just keep in mind, everyone is up in arms about the deportation. Not everyone, actually. The majority still are very much in favor of it, even Catholics. Okay, They voted for this. They know it's not right. So the deportations are going on. They're doing their best to conduct it in a humane fashion. They're not perfect. But where were they, these moral leaders, when you had the cartels doing this organ transplants, harvesting at the southern border? Okay, where were they? Silent. Pope Leo denounces Trump Vance's decision to block Eucharist from ICE detainees. All right, what's going on? Do we have the actual video? Can we play the video from the Holy Father? Let's play that clip.
First place, the role of the church is to preach the gospel. And just a couple of days ago, we heard Matthew's Gospel, chapter 25, which says, Jesus says very clearly, at the end of the world, we're going to be asked, how did you receive the foreigner? Did you receive him and welcome him or not? And I think that there's a deep reflection that needs to be made in terms of what's happening. Many people who have lived for years and years and years, never causing problems, have been deeply affected by what's going on right now. The spiritual rights of people who have been detained should also be considered, and I would certainly invite the authorities to allow pastoral workers to attend to the needs of those people. Many times they've been separated from their families for a good amount of time. No one knows what's happening, but their own spiritual needs should be attended to.
So what the Holy Father is talking about, and to be clear, thank you, Holy Father, for speaking about the rights for immigrants, no matter who it is. The worst criminals have a right to the sacraments, okay?
Yep.
Confession, the Eucharist, 100%. We want that. We absolutely do. If there are people in these detention centers who are not getting that, that's wrong, okay? But here is what's going on behind the scenes, okay? And maybe the Holy Father doesn't really know. He's being told this. Not getting the full picture. Is what we kind of covered before with Bishop Strickland too, when I interviewed him 3 weeks ago. They're making spectacles out of this, okay?
Yep.
They are organizing Eucharistic processions, which, funny enough, they almost never do Eucharistic processions on Corpus Christi, okay? And suddenly they're going to do a Eucharistic procession, okay? Wonderful. But they're going from the church to the detention, primarily in the Archdiocese of Chicago, and they're just showing up without warning to these ICE detention centers and saying, let us in. And they got the cameras rolling and saying, how big bad police officer not letting us have the whole Eucharist there. It's obvious, but you got to see through the noise of this. Common sense people, they know this. All these pastors, these priests know the protocols for bringing the sacraments to a prison, okay? If you've ever visited a prison before, you have to submit your name well in advance. It allows for background checks. It allows for proper vetting, all that stuff. They know that. They don't want that. It's designed show, okay, to create this spin on the media. We're not being thing. We posted something when I saw this. And by the way, I'm grateful to Bishop Barron too, because he is doing it the way I think we should be. He's just he spoke up and said, look, I'm going to make sure I do my part to make sure that they actually do get this. If there's any blockage going on from deportees to sacraments, I'm going to do my best. Thank you, Bishop Barron, for doing that. But Michael, how funny is it? I mean, holy mackerel. We have more enthusiasm from the presbyterate of the Archdiocese of Chicago to bring people the sacraments, these detainees, than we do during COVID, when thousands of people died without the sacraments. And they were cool with that. They were like, it's non-essential. It's non-essential that you have the anointing of the sick, confession, last rites. Walgreens is, the Eucharist is, or getting your alcohol is, getting your abortion at Planned Parenthood, essential services. But the Eucharist, no. And all of a sudden now we have these fake processions. Comment, please.
So one of the things that wasn't included in some of these news reports is that these processions included Aztec dancers.
What?
Yes.
Pachamama 2.0?
Exactly. So we've got these Aztec dancers who are doing their feather dances, leading the Eucharistic processions. So they've not only made it a spectacle, they've made it a spectacle that includes certain forms of shamanic worship into the Eucharistic procession, which is, it's an abomination before the Lord. So
brownie points for my producer. If you can find those Aztec dancers, we'll throw that up on screen, but that's eye candy. But yeah, keep going, Michael.
So, you have a very serious problem here where the bishops have made themselves, well, of course it's a problem, but it's a problem of their own making because they are looking for their paychecks coming from the government funds that are going to make sure that they continue to assist these immigrants to relocate in the United States. But could you imagine for a moment what would happen if bishops paid as much attention to shutting down abortion mills with real Eucharistic processions instead of these showboating, spectacles that they've been putting on for the media, but actual Eucharistic processions with incensing of the buildings and exorcistic rites against these abortionists who are slaughtering children? Could you imagine what would happen in this country if bishops did that en masse all over the country? You would see abortion end overnight. But because they've become more political and because they're looking for a financial incentive to conduct these political charades in front of detention centers, well, first of all, they're not faithful to Christ. They're not doing this out of faithfulness to him. They're not doing this out of a real love of neighbor. They're doing this because they're looking for a promotion of their political agendas that leads to a financial incentive for themselves. So no, there is no grace to be had in the spectacles they've been putting on. But if they actually had, the faith, if they actually really believed and they enacted this kind of thing against the true enemies of Christ and his faithful, whether it's these abortion centers or trans centers or LGBT community centers, they would shut down the grave immorality in this country overnight. And they won't do it.
They won't. I'm glad you brought up they have a vested interest. It's obvious. I'm not saying that every single person who's speaking up about the treatment of migrants, every bishop is primarily motivated by government grants. I'm sure they do want that treatment to be fair and it's good. And we have to keep our law enforcement accountable, but goodness gracious, it doesn't help when it's an organized resistance against law enforcement. You've seen a lot of these videos now where, oh my gosh, they arrested him, they dragged the person out of the car, and maybe they threw it. Like there was one that the law enforcement officer threw a punch, so that was all over. Threw a couple punches at this person. Well, of course, why? Because that person they were chasing them for like 10 minutes. They finally get him out of the car, and the person grabs the law enforcement officer by the genitals. Okay, so he's in tremendous pain. Okay, so you're gonna see a lot of this propaganda. Okay, so that's going on. Yes, government grants that for Catholic charities has been greatly reduced. Oh, there we go. So this is part of a Eucharistic procession.
Yep.
I guess that's the synodal way there at work, but it's not really what it's about. Okay, well, I don't know what that is. That's pagan. That's pagan worship.
It's totally pagan.
So that's been incorporated into this. This is not. It's a guise. It's the ape of the church, to quote Fulton Sheen, is what you're seeing there. And we need to call this out. So that's going on. Just circling back quickly, we'll read this quick. My producer pulled this up. The actual catechism, the Catholic Church for organ heart transplants. I'll read it quick and just leave it there. This is 2296. What our Holy Catholic Church teaches. Approves more or less organ transplants are in conformity with the moral law if the physical and psychological dangers and risk to the donor are proportionate to the good that is sought for the recipient. Organ donation after death is a noble and meritorious act and is to be encouraged as an expression of generous solidarity. It is not morally acceptable if the donor or his proxy has not given explicit consent. Did you want to comment quickly on that or just leave it there?
Well, we can leave it there for the most part. I do want to just point out that the principle that's being founded here is proportionalism, which was condemned by the church. So I'm not even so sure that this is accurate.
Again, catechisms are not infallible. They have infallible statements in them, but they are not infallible documents. Okay. Which that's why the death penalty is also could be that number should be updated, really, I think, after Pope Francis' rendition of it. Okay. So going over just so that the immigration battle is going to continue to heat up. It's a hot issue, a lot going on there. You have the Marxists who want the chaos in this country. Literally, again, the government shutdown that's happening right now, where all these travel agents or TSA agents, for instance, are not getting their paychecks. They can't pay their bills. Why is this happening? Because the Democrats want $1 trillion of whose money? Your money, my money. Okay, our tax dollars. They want $1 trillion of it to fund for the health care of these illegal migrants that they let in. Okay, so that's what's going on. It's going to continue to heat up. Just one more thing quickly about with the election, about what we're up against. Is let's play the video for the what the Muslim behind the scene, what they're trying to do, the plan, the new invasion of
years
the
of our trial to conquer Europe by force failed. They did something wrong, very wrong. They tried for many years to conquer Europe through wars, only wars.
This is the soft Islamic conquest of the West. Basically, what the Islamic and again, I'm an Orthodox Muslim. What we couldn't do in the last, say, 20 years, now the West is doing it for us for free and even paying for it.
Allah permitted them to live off the infidel while they are subduing them. So it had sort of a parasitic type of attitude where they can live off of the host country, where their goal is to eventually eradicate the host culture and supplant it with Islam.
Great ending there. That was Bill Fetter, good friend of mine, expert in American history. Nailed it. He said that's from the Quran. Their false god that allows for them to be parasites on the system until they take it over. What you saw there was the battle plan. That video was actually played over different. It was posted over social media across a lot of the conservative accounts in the last 24 hours. That is their plan. They're not hiding it. Okay, they're coming to this country to take this over. This is Christendom. Okay, they know that, the West. what Christendom founded the West. It is, and they know America is the last bastion, and they have a lot of their sites on Texas specifically. Okay, so I use the term useful idiots in the beginning of the show for maybe some of the Christian dispensationalists, because that's what the 1948 state of Israel has made them. They have used the useful idiots of Christians for their own ends. Now I'm going to point a finger at ourselves. Okay, us Catholics, we're the useful idiots of this Islamic invasion when we play footsie with the enemy. When we try to say all religions are equal, it doesn't matter. Yeah, sure, come. Our Lent's like your Ramadan. Let's mimic that. Isn't that cute? Isn't that wonderful? They're laughing at us. Mom Donnie is laughing at us. He didn't mention once Americans today or last night in his victory speech. Okay, neither did the mayor of Minneapolis. It was a celebration. There were no American flags at all. They do not. They hate this country. They hate you and I. They hate Jesus Christ. Most importantly, this is not racism. It's hatred for Jesus and his mother Mary. Okay. We got a lot of work we're up against. I'm going to quickly just mention in passing, which is an example of what Catholics for Catholics does. We have to be speaking up as Catholics, even when our own church maybe drops the ball. We had a situation here, and thank God, by the way, that it was just a lone Catholic here in Arizona. I missed it. And this is the role, like local action equals national impact. You can do this. There are a lot of things going on in your local area, school boards, local statewide elections, which are not getting the coverage that it needs. Here in Arizona, we have this Proposition 49, which was voted on yesterday. We're still waiting for the results. Okay? On its face, it sounds wonderful. Okay? There you go. Perfect. Leave that there. So as I explain this, the mental health is a crisis in the country. Duh. We get that. So what was presented to the Arizona voters was to have a proposition which would fund $900 million money from taxpayers to support mental health institutions. Sounds lovely. Sounds amazing. Couple problems with it. Actually, a lot of problems. Okay. You have, number one, where are they getting this taxpayer money? How are they creating it? Those of you who own a home, remember that property tax bill you have to pay twice a year? Or if you're, it's taken out of your monthly mortgage every single month, it's your property tax, right? They had this ingenious idea, people in this lovely state of mind, to let's create a secondary property tax. Isn't that nice? We all love taxes. Let's have a secondary property tax specifically to fund the $900 million to go to this institution, which will take care of the mental health issue. What's the institution? Valley Health Wise. What is this? This is an institution which, drumroll, is the leading LGBT provider of services, promotion of counseling in the state of Arizona. One of the top leaders here, okay? They're funding that. Now, they say that the money that they get from this, from the state taxpayers, will not go to these services. We'll only do the mental health, they say. However, and Michael, you get a good point about this. I want you to say this in a second. They have shown already in the past 8 years that they have not been transparent with previous grants we, the taxpayer, have given them. In fact, we give them a large grant like 8 years ago, and despite FOIA requests, legal action, they have not coughed up how they've used those funds. So, sorry, pal, you guys are not good stewards of the money we gave you before. You're not showing how you used it. You do not have our trust. It's like telling us that Planned Parenthood, which gets money from the government, will not use money for abortions. No. Whatever. Now, here's where it got bad. Our bishop, we got to pray for. Every time we speak ill of a bishop, we must double our prayers for our bishop. They are the successor of the apostles. They need our prayers. Bishop John Dolan came out with a glowing endorsement of this Proposition 409. Okay? So now I was in touch with the person with the diocese. I wrote to the secretary of the Bishop's Conference, Ron Johnson. Zero response from him at all. I emailed him. I called him. I even wrote the Bishop's secretary. Zero response. Thankfully, a little too late, but one of the reps higher up called me and had a good conversation with them, which I won't disclose the context of the conversation. However, it's for me as a Catholic, I don't know, I'm going to assume maybe he didn't know, but now he knows, okay? Now they know what this was funding. You need to speak up and you need to challenge this. This is what Catholics for Catholics has got to be doing. Us, others like Lepanto, you guys do phenomenal research on Capital Campaign for Human Development and other stuff. We got to speak up about where our money is going because it's funny stuff like this. What was the good comment you had about this whole thing, Michael?
Well, the problem that you're facing right now is that they want to raise $900 million for mental health crisis by providing funding to an institution whose very ideology is fueling mental health crises by promoting mental health issues in the LGBT movement. So even if they say that the funding is not going to go towards those elements, the problem is that their very ideology, their very foundational understanding of the human person, the human makeup, is predicated on a false notion that you can be somebody who is not the sex of their biological reality, or that society should somehow have to cater or kowtow to their sexual fantasy and live it out in a real way. So when you have that as your foundational ideology and expression of what you think the human person is, you're not fit to address a mental health crisis in this country or in this in Arizona, in the state of Arizona. You're not fit to do that. So the very basis for this bill to give money to institutions who are doing these things is completely and totally flawed on the face of it, and it should not be supported.
That's an excellent point. Like, even if they actually don't use the $900 million for transition service and they just use it for mental health, you still make the point, which makes a lot of sense. So what? The very institution that's helping to create the problem, as we're seeing in all these mass shooters, which oftentimes are detransitioned individuals or whatever, right? They want to take care of mental health. It's a joke. Give me a break. So that's what's going on. We need to be speaking up. And I asked for prayers because I have a follow-up call. They asked the diocese to talk to me later today. So just pray that we can present our facts clearly, respectfully, with a lot of courage and holy reverence for the office, but also not cower to any falsehoods. So pray for that call, please, if you could. Let's end the show with Mary. I wish it was just a nice final salutation to Our Lady, like sometimes we do. But unfortunately, there was a bit confusing. Okay, title of the article. This came out 2 days ago in the Vatican. Man, there's a lot going on. A lot going on in the world. We should do shows twice a week. Have the Vatican's doctrinal office said Tuesday. The title of the article is "Vatican Nixes Use of Co-Redemptrix as Title of Mary." Wow, what is going on? Mater Populi Fidelis, the mother of the faithful people of God, the dicaster for the doctrine of the faith, said when an expression requires frequent explanation to maintain the correct meaning, it becomes unhelpful. In this case, the expression co-redemptrix does not help extol Mary as the first and foremost collaborator in the work of redemption and grace, for it carries the risk of eclipsing the exclusive role of Jesus. This was signed off by Pope Leo, and obviously under the direction of Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, head of the Doctrine of the Faith. Before I even get to what was said, let's just have a 30-second commercial on the guy who wrote this, the Cardinal. This is the Cardinal, remember? Who wrote
Kiss Me With Your Mouth, or
Heal Me With Your Mouth, Michael.
Saname
con tu boca, right, in Spanish. He wrote this crazy piece about the art of kissing. Isn't he the one that did the homosexual mural on his own cathedral?
No, I don't think that wasn't him. That was a different one. But the other problem that we have with him is that he wrote this book, and I read this book. It was disgusting. It was extremely graphic, sexualizing a lot of the saints, and taking that's the Heal Me With Your Mouth book. But there was another one, and we wrote an article about it on lepantoin.org. But he in this book he took certain things that were going on with ecstasies and the spiritual expressions of some of these saints, these beautiful virginal saints, and he totally sexualized what they were saying and made it into something perverse. And he did so throughout the entire thing. It was actually blasphemous what he wrote, and his only excuse for it was, well, I was young at the time. You were 35. You know, it's not like you're some 15-year-old kid going, boobs. You're
Right.
you're 35 years old, and this is a very serious and grave injury to Holy Mother Church that he engaged in, and it's never been addressed. It's never that's the book, The Mystical Passion. So that's a serious problem that we have with him. But when we start looking at what he wrote with regard to the titles, Mediatrix of All Grace and
This is the guy who
Co-Redemptrix,
wrote this. So that's the author. This is the guy behind this document about Our Lady. Take that in mind. Go.
yeah. So when he wrote about the Mediatrix of All Grace and the Co-Redemptrix, and said, well, it's unhelpful and it's hard to understand, and it's inappropriate to use these terms. Well, Holy Mother Church has found it appropriate for quite a long time. The first use of the word co-redemptrix in a Catholic setting is over 500 years old. This is something that's been used by the church. In fact, in 1913, Pope Saint Pius X, elevated a prayer to an indulgenced act in 1913, wherein the use of Our Lady's title, Co-Redemptrix, was written into the prayer. That's an indulgenced act, 100 days. So when you make that prayer, there's grace. To say that you can then turn that which is a graced act within the church and make it sinful, or make it harmful, or make it unhelpful and say that it's unhelpful, the question is, unhelpful to whom?
So to be clear here, the terms, okay, or unhelpful, the rationale doesn't really add up in a lot of ways.
No, it
It's almost
doesn't.
like, okay, it's hard to explain, therefore let's nix it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, let me just tell you something. Charlie Kirk, and a friend of mine, you know what is a hard term for him to understand? Was transubstantiation. Literally, it's one of the three issues that, towards the end he was wrestling with as someone looking to becoming Catholic. He's buried in a Catholic cemetery. That's a fact, and we verified that, by the way. He had a hard time with that transubstantiation term. So should we also recycle that baby and throw that one away? I mean, like, where's the stop? I mean, hypostatic union's not the easiest thing to explain either.
Mm-hmm.
It's just dumb down our faith, man. Let's just, maybe the author of "Heal Me with Your Mouth" can heal us with making it easier for catechetics.
Several years ago, when the new translation of the Creed came out for the Mass, the Novus Ordo Mass, and the translation was consubstantial, you had a whole bunch of Novus Ordo priests upset, saying, "I don't know what consubstantial means."
You never had philosophical formation. That's why.
Philosophical. Did you ever take grammar? Consubstantial, same substance. It's why is that a hard thing? It's not a hard thing. They just don't like it. They don't like it because it expresses a certain theological reality that they wish to reject. That's the problem.
Eric Sammons had a great just summation of this article about what it's about. Oh yeah, I told Charles, pull this up, Michael. This is on your feed. That's a great picture, right? Does that not show essentially what co-redemptrix is in a lot of ways?
Yep.
Like, she is, and there's a quote there from Pius X from that prayer you just mentioned. So yeah, Mary's stepping on the foot, but Jesus' foot is right on top of hers, pushing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So let's hold that image up for a second as I just read through just a quick bullet points of what this new decree from the Vatican said and did not say, so you don't get lost. There are two basically titles that are under discussion: co-redemptrix and mediatrix. Okay, here's what the document says: it does not demote Mary. That's just clickbait, says Eric. Okay, it's not demotion. Right. Nothing in the document, at least in my first reading, is heretical. Okay, well, that's wonderful. Wow. Are we happy that we have a document from the CDF that's not heretical? It in fact acknowledges Mary's unique role in salvation. Okay, that's great. Good. It does not say either co-redemptrix or mediatrix are heretical. Okay, so you can basically, therefore, you can use it still. Okay. It uses language like it's not appropriate and needs special prudence to use. It's much stronger against the title mediatrix of all graces, arguing that since Mary herself received graces at her conception, she cannot be the mediator of those graces and thus not of all graces, which I'm going to disagree there, right? Because let me read it again. It's saying that it argues that Mary herself received graces at her conception. She cannot be the mediator of those graces and thus not of all graces. Because ironically, I don't know if this is a fair analogy, but the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, okay, that was what the church finally taught on that when it approved it in 1858, was that Mary, she was preserved from out sin. She kind of received a grace, like it's almost like a coupon of what was coming. Like Christ had not died on the cross yet to redeem her, but she got it in advance, essentially, knowing that it would happen. So I would use a similar analogy here that she received a grace prior, right? When she, at her conception, right? So it goes on. It's far too worried about the misunderstandings and confusion in relation to Protestants, a long-time Vatican session. However, lots of Catholic terms like Mother of God and transubstantiation can cause confusion, but that doesn't make them inappropriate to use. We just said that. As I understand it, says Eric, Catholics are still free to use these titles in their personal devotions. And most importantly, a future pope could reverse this decision and one day still dogmatically declare Mary as co-redemptrix. Nothing in this document precludes that. Thoughts on that?
Well, first, I think the first thing that needs to be addressed, there was no decision here. The document doesn't impose any kind of act or inaction. It just simply makes it's almost like we're going to give you a clarifying thought on this particular use of the term. It doesn't say, and therefore you may not use this term. It doesn't. Eric Sammons points that out. So the, when he says that this decision, it could be reversed, I have to dispute a little bit with that phraseology because there was no decision. So there's really nothing to reverse. They can say, yeah, this document's dumb. And by the way, we're going to institute the fourth Marian dogma, which says that she is the co-redemptrix. They could do that. And that could actually happen. So ultimately, at the end of the day, this is a big nothing burger, except to stir the pot. And whenever
so it is a burger though. It's like, okay, it's a nothing burger to stir the pot. So it is a burger. Okay.
Well, sure.
It's a triple Mac. Okay. Because it's like, why in the world? Let me give you an analogy. Why? Out of all the things we got going on in the Catholic Church today, it's like,
why are they focusing on this?
Imagine like the Sears Tower in Chicago. Okay. And maybe the top window, the very top window on the 100th floor. It's not even like the floor where people go to. It's like a closet. Okay. On that window is a speck of dirt. Okay. And like all of a sudden, the Sears Tower, people in charge of the company decide, oh my goodness, let's stop everything that we're doing. Let's build a scaffolding all the way up to the top of that window. Let's clean that thing up. Yeah, we might lose about 5-10 people as we're doing the scaffolding from deaths, but man, that is that important. We've got to address that. Like seriously, Michael, when was the last time you ran into the grocery store and you're talking to like a Catholic and you're like, oh my gosh, that fellow Catholic, he's confused about co-redemptrix.
Right.
He's given
exactly.
Mary. I mean, my goodness, like,
yeah, no, that's an excellent point.
It's retarded.
Yes.
It's just say what it is. I've been respectful up till now, but give me a break. I mean,
no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when you look at the plummeting of mass attendance and the fact that they're trying to squash the traditional Latin mass as opposed to allowing the church to flourish in all of her forms. And now they're going to, I mean, ultimately, I think that our Lord's words about the speck in your brother's eye when you've got the mote in your own is well applied here.
We're joking that this retarded that they're focusing on this thing, which really is like probably one of the least concerns right now. I mean, half of our church use contraceptives. IVF is out the window in terms of its what's being done there. I mean, there's so many more hot button issues, right? But you have to do that. Now, that's being nice, okay? Seeing the other side of this, it's like you cannot not deny that the ape of the church, the part of the church which has mimicked the church, which has been in existence more and more and more, okay, under the guise of things like fiducia supplicans, the blessing of same-sex couples, ridiculous, right?
Mhm.
Is this animosity towards Our Lady, okay?
Right.
They can't stand that. You see that with the way that the rosary was downplayed in seminaries for decades. I'm a former seminarian. Thankfully, the Legion of Christ, we were big promoters of the rosary. I love them for that. But in other places, man, they hated that. They didn't like adoration. They didn't like the rosary. Okay. So this feels more like that, to be totally honest. Like, give me a break. Again, who is the last person that was too devoted to Mary? Like, imagine going to heaven saying, you know what? We're in All Souls Day purgatory or All Souls Day octave. You live the great life. Peter saying to your grandma who just died, Grandma Susie, you had a great life, but one thing that we got against you, you were just too close to Mary. You didn't give Jesus her due. Man, you just overused the co-redemptrix title. Okay? Purgatory. Purgatory. 100 years.
Right.
It's anyway. Arrest my case, Michael.
Yeah. No, and when I said, who are they saying that it's unhelpful? Why are they saying it's unhelpful? Unhelpful to whom? The answer is to their efforts to have a unified it's like the uniparty in politics. Okay, we've got the uniparty in politics, and the Vatican is trying to push for this unireligion where we can all have our own systematic form of beliefs and we all come together in kumbaya, and it's, you don't have to convert, you can just believe what you believe, and it's so great and wonderful. But nobody wants to come together if you believe in the mediatrix or the co-redemptrix. I don't know how that's a stumbling block or who's focusing on that, but I did notice that the moment that I talked about this on X, we got inundated with comments from Protestants. Really? Yes. I'm sitting there going, we usually have interactions with other Catholics. That's the majority of interactions that we have on that platform. And when we talk about Catholic things, we have other Catholics talking about Catholic things. Why all of a sudden am I being inundated with comments? Even this one popular Protestant commentator on X named Lizzie got on there, and she started spewing her Protestant nonsense to try and make a big deal about this. And they're even telling us, oh, it's unbiblical. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so what about John 6? Let's talk about unbiblical. And you don't believe in transubstantiation. You don't believe that we actually eat the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ in the Holy Eucharist. You reject that notion. Why exactly? Oh, because we have a proper understanding, whatever. But the point is that it doesn't make any sense for all these Protestants to jump on there unless they were really the target of this whole thing to begin with.
That's interesting. Which makes a lot of sense that they would react to that. Because Mary is the one that leads us to Jesus, to her true church. So if we downplay her role too much, we're stopping people from coming to our Lord ultimately, right? Because literally, physically, Christ came from the womb of Our Lady, right? She was the vessel, okay? She was the mediatrix, literally, of the physical presence of Jesus Christ in the world, born on Christmas morning, okay? So it would make sense in a spiritual way too, as well, that Our Lady is that role. And again, it's hopefully that'll be changed or updated or clarified later. Again, we can still use the term mediatrix of all graces, but it's been frowned upon because it's hard to explain. So we're going to do our part to also heed the Vatican to explain that better for people. Against any doubts what that means.
Yep.
Well, it's been a long show, but a good show. It's important. A lot of good reels in here. A lot of stuff going on in the Catholic world. I think it'd be perfect if we just end with a Hail Mary. What do you say to that, Michael?
Amen to that.
So, Hail Mary, we're going to pray for just the country, the church, of what's going on for the it's so important. The number one obstacle to destroying America is Christendom, specifically the Catholic Church. Not that America is the goal, but it's a means to an end to get people to heaven. Okay. So let's pray for our Catholic Church, for our leaders, for all the popes, bishops. We've talked about President Trump, our elected leaders. Pray for them, asking for Our Lady's intercession. She's mediatrix, all graces, which is a subservient role to Christ, obviously. And let's end with a Hail Mary to her. And also for Cardinal Macro, I just saw that he's been diagnosed with a very severe form of cancer. Okay, so let's pray for him in DC. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
This has been a special edition of Catholic Champion. Monday, I have a special thing. It's not Michael won't be here for that. At least that one. We might do a Wednesday show, but we'll have a special edition Monday on the anniversary of the United States Marine Corps. We got some veterans, Catholic Marine veterans, who will be joining us, and we'll be having a discussion about how they have served America and their Catholic faith how it's influenced their life. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. It's been an edition of Catholic Champion. God bless.